What targets do you need to hit on your way to retirement? Well, the simple truth is that most people fail because they either didn't start or don't know if they're where they should be with their retirement plan. So today I'm going to give you some targets and milestones to shoot for. Hi, I'm Chris Sobolski, and I help people like you retire with dignity, purpose, and your eyes set on the future. Now, this is a newer YouTube channel, so I'd really appreciate it if you like, subscribe, comment. Anything you do really helps us out. Thank you so much. Now, most people don't reach retirement because they didn't plan for how long they'll live, the income they'll need, or the risk the markets provide. The answer isn't always just save more. It's about saving smarter. So let's talk about the milestones that really move the needle. And let's start with the classic one, paying off your mortgage. Reaching a $0 mortgage balance by retirement is incredible. Do you really need to be debt free going into retirement? Well, not always, but let's say you have a mortgage sitting at a great rate of 2, 3%. You refinanced a few years ago and you have a budget that can safely handle it. Maybe you don't want to justify or can't justify paying that off early, or maybe it's going to be paid off soon after you enter retirement. But there's something really powerful about getting into retirement with no debt whatsoever. Most people aim for a mortgage of 20 to 35% of their monthly income. And if we translate that into retirement, we're talking about a serious influx of monthly cash. So if you're pulling out less from your portfolio because your home is paid off, then your portfolio should last longer, which can give you a huge boost to your emotional state, right? Now, number two is saving enough to withdraw 4% or less of your portfolio each year. Now, this 4% rule is the iconic benchmark that tells you if you're pulling out 4% or less in your first year of retirement, whether your portfolio should last 25 years or more in retirement. And this adjusts for inflation and assumes that you have about 60% of your money in stocks, 40% of your money in bonds. So if you do this, you should have a portfolio that can last 25 or 30 years or more in those, worst case market scenarios. Now, your withdrawal rate will change as you get older. If you want to say pull out $100,000 a year in retirement, well, you simply divide $100,000 by 0.04. So understanding how much money you'll need to pull out in retirement can help you back into a number of what you'll need to have saved when you retire. Now, the 4% rule does have some drawbacks. One being that most people aren't going to live for 25 or 30 years in retirement. Some might have a shorter life expectancy, and therefore having a higher withdrawal rate might make sense for them. But the bottom line is, if you plan on living for 25 years in retirement, understanding that pulling out 4% during your first year of retirement, your first 2 years of retirement, that's a great benchmark to figure out whether you're on track or not. The next one, funding an HSA to the max and then investing it. Healthcare expenses are one of the biggest unknowns in retirement. So if you have access to an HSA, use it. You get to put money into it tax free. You get to invest it and it can grow tax free. And so long as you use it for qualified medical expenses, the money comes out tax free. Triple tax advantages. That's incredibly rare, right? The next milestone is hitting Social Security eligibility with 35 years of work. Now, Social Security benefits are based on your highest 35 earning years. They're not the most recent or consecutive. So a lot of pensions that, they're based on maybe the top 3 or 4 or 5 years of earning. Social Security isn't like that. It looks at your top 35 earning years. Now, Social Security is so critical because of two things. First, it's guaranteed income. Now, we're not going to get into a political debate here of whether Social Security will exist in the future or not, but as of now, let's consider it guaranteed income from the government. That's the important part. And number two is that this guaranteed income gets indexed for inflation, meaning when you go through the COVID years, inflation's up 8% in 1 year. Well, Social Security income got an 8% increase to match inflation. So when we look at our Social Security benefit statement, we can estimate that we'll maintain that same amount of purchasing power, those dollars, through retirement. The next milestone is building a 6 to 12 month cash reserve. Now, we all know the importance of having a 3 to 6 month cash buffer while we work. Jobs can get lost, medical emergencies arise, air conditioners blow up, cars crap out, right? But in retirement, having more cash on hand is important. Why? Well, it prevents us from having to sell investments when the market crashes. The biggest worry we have in retirement is something called sequence of return risk. And it's the risk that the market will do poorly in your early years of retirement. So, what do we do if we're retired in October of 2008 and our portfolio is down 30, 40%? Well, the ideal scenario would be that the markets are never down, but we live in the real world and crashes happen. So, when they happen, the ideal would be that we have cash on hand that we can use to pay for our bills while that market is down or recovering. Now, there's no guarantee that the market will recover in 6 to 12 months. Some people say have 24 to 36 months of cash on hand, but my general guideline is 6 to 12 months. And those other advisors who want to have more than 12 months, maybe a year or two, 3 years of cash on hand, there's nothing wrong with that advice. But for me, 6 to 12 months is enough cash on hand because generally we're saying, 6 to 12 months of spending. And, in retirement, depending on your age, you might have other guaranteed income sources that are not going to be affected by the market. So if you can get to that 6 to 12 months of cash on hand milestone, that really allows you to avoid some of the big market downturns and avoid having to take money out of your portfolio when things are bad. Our next milestone is having a clear withdrawal strategy. Most people obsess over savings, but many forget to plan on how they'll actually use their money once they retire. And this is where retirement goal planning comes in. Now, we've talked about the simple 4% rule, but withdrawal strategies go beyond just how much we're pulling out. It involves which accounts we're taking out, what order we take out of those accounts, and when we'll tap other accounts. I have a number of other videos that talk about this point and the importance of understanding your account types and taxes. The general rule is that we pull out of our traditional IRA first, then our taxable account, and finally the Roth IRA or tax-free accounts. Other types of withdrawal strategies, like the guardrail approach, says you can increase your withdrawal rates when the markets are up or decrease it when the markets are down. This might give you some flexibility with your spending, but it can also protect your portfolio in the long run and help you spend more when things are better. Another strategy, an older one, is called the bucket strategy. This is where you divide your portfolio up into time-based buckets. So like a short, intermediate, and long-term bucket. The short-term bucket might have cash CDs. A mid-range bucket might, be a more fixed income or conservative portfolio. And then the long-term bucket might be, your more aggressive portfolio. And so this can reduce your overall risk by having time-bound buckets. And maybe it might actually help your emotions too, because you've really budgeted out for different time horizons. Now, as to which one's best, that's really subjective. A lot of people simply like to look at the 4% rule, while others who are maybe spending more than others like the guardrail approach, because when the market does well, it gives them the ability to spend more money. And the bucket approach really is great for savers who, love to save more. They're not, or they're spending conscious. They like to have a structure around their withdrawal strategy. So the point with all of these targets or milestones is to help you understand where you stand today. Retirement's not an end goal. It's the beginning of a whole new set of goals and chapters. And understanding what you need to spend, what you want to do, can really help you plan for how to get there. I'm sure there are a number of other targets that I missed, so please put them in the comments below. I'd love to hear your feedback. Is there anything that you think is important for every retiree to understand, or is there something that helped you get to retirement with more peace of mind? Again, thank you for watching. If you please like, comment, subscribe, share. Anything you do really helps the channel out. Hope you have a great day.